Hello, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we will continue with the discussion on cloud computing. So in the first lecture, we discussed about what is cloud computing and what are the different the characteristics of cloud computing. So why we have to go for cloud computing and what are the advantages. And we also looked at the different delivery models, like how the cloud offers the services like software as a service, platform as a service, and infrastructure as a service. So where the software as a service provides the ready application to the end user. And similarly, platform as a service, maybe you can develop an application where the provider will provide an environment where in which you can develop any application. And infrastructure as a service, maybe they'll provide a core infrastructure in terms of the CPU, RAM, storage, and so on. And we also looked at the different deployment models like public cloud, private, hybrid cloud, and community cloud. And in the second lecture, we have seen one of the giant cloud provider, that is Amazon. So we have seen the few of the services offered by Amazon. So mainly on Amazon EC2 Elastic Cloud, like how do you get how Amazon is offering infrastructure as a service in the form of a virtual machine. We have seen, right, how exactly uh, um, how to create a virtual machine on Amazon. And also we looked at other services related to storage like uh, EBS, that is Elastic Block Storage, and S3, that is Simple Storage Service. Today we will move on to another provider, that is Microsoft. So we'll look at what are the services offered by uh, Microsoft. So before that, we'll look into one of the services which is offered by the Google, that is offered by the Amazon, that is a CloudFront. So what is a CloudFront? Because that is one important services which is required for web application. So before CloudFront, first let us understand. I hope you are already aware of this content delivery network, right? So what is CDN, Content Delivery Network? So it is a network of distributed servers containing content replicas that serve by delivering web content against each request from a suitable content server based on the geographic location of the origin of the request and the location of a content server. So it is something like this. Let us take a scenario. Maybe so there is one organization, right, in India. They are offering some business service, and they have one web application. So they are offering the services through that web application. Assume that and that they are having the clients only in India. So that business, they're having only the clients in India, and maybe in that case, what they can do is they can host their application in the web server in India only. Any one of the web server, uh, uh, they can place their web application in that web server. Now consider a scenario as a business grows, right? So assume that they are having the maybe the customers or the client across the globe. Okay, assume that maybe some customers are from US and some customers are from maybe Australia, Europe, and so on. So in that case, the problem is that maybe Indian customer, maybe they can access that web application easily. The latency will be less because that will be that web server is residing in India only. What about the clients who are accessing this web application from US, Australia, and all, right? So there is a lot of there is a latency, right? Because the distance from US to India is far. So now how that latency can be reduced? The latency can be reduced by maybe having maybe what replication of caching of the caching of the web page content in their nearby location. Assume that maybe US client, they want to access this website. Okay, so in that case, instead of directly hitting the request on the server which is located in India, what they can do is so the request can be navigated to maybe the edge location in US. All right, so that itself will uh, 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 deliver the web pages. No need to no need for a request. Maybe sending the request to the Indian server. So the basic idea is that we are caching the content across the globe, so that nearby customer will access that web page through that edge server only. So that is the basic idea for this content delivery network. So now this CloudFront is one of the service offered by this. Uh, the CloudFront is one of the content delivery service which is offered by the Amazon. So the service was launched in 2008, as you know, which is based on the pay-as-you-go model. So the CloudFront delivers content about let's turn off the. Okay, so this Amazon, they have more than 50 edge location throughout the world in which they are serving the web content. It works seamlessly with the S3 bucket, but it can be used without this S3 bucket also. Okay, so now this is a basic idea. Now you have already seen in the last lecture that is Amazon S3, that is a simple storage service, that is where you can store the uh, any static content, right? If you look at an example of web pages, the static contents are maybe HTML, CSS, JavaScript, image. So those things which you can place it in the Amazon S3 bucket. Now, how do you access that? Now, if that is a link to the web server, maybe you can directly access the contents of S3. Now, if assume that S3 bucket is in India only. Now, what about if the clients are from India, this US, Australia, and all? Now, what they can do is those static content you can replicate across the globe. That is what which is mentioned as a distribution. You can distribute the static content across the globe. So that is nothing but nearby uh, 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 what is called as a edge location. So the clients of that respective countries will access these static content from that edge location itself. But how exactly it works? Okay, now let us take the same example where the web server is our this web application is residing in Indian web server only. Okay, and assume that the customer is from USA and he wants to access some of the web page containing this static content. So at the first time, what happens is, it will access that, it will get the data from this Indian web server itself. Okay, and that will be cached in the nearby edge location. Then later, if another customer, when he's trying to access the same content, sorry.
Sorry to interrupt, sir. I this might sound a little basic, but I don't exactly understand. I know, like a bucket is a very important concept. Bucket, dockers, containers. So I don't understand like what exactly it is from a low-level point of view. I know high level you it's somewhere you cache like uh, these type of datas, but I don't really understand like is it so like, do you cache it in a local data center somewhere, or like, what exactly is a bucket?
In a simple way, Amazon S3, it is just like your Google Drive. I can say that it is a Google Drive where you can store the data. Any static content which you can store it in Amazon S3.
And okay, so so we have to view it as like a container that can just store any type of data, like this type of data, locally for clients, for example, like from US, they want to access a site hosted on an Indian server. They will be accessing the cache in this Amazon S3 bucket.
No, this CloudFront and this S3 are two different concepts. So first, Amazon S3, it is a storage service offered by the Amazon. So you have seen this Amazon EC2, right?
Yes, sir, that's VM.
What
No?
is Amazon EC2? That is a compute cloud. Suppose
Yes.
if you want to some computer in terms of a number of cores and RAM, right? You specify that, and that will be offered in the form of a virtual machine.
Yes, sir.
So you can work on that virtual machine. All right,
Yes.
if you have any computation which you want to perform, and you can perform that computation on the virtual machine.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that is a compute service offered by the Amazon.
But VM is the most like VM is like you have a computer in a cloud itself, sort of
Yes.
running, right?
Yes.
But a bucket is like you want to run only a few functions.
No, bucket is not to run any function. Bucket is like a storage area. How you are going to store the data? It is just like maybe you can. It is synonymous to this Google Drive. I can compare it with the Google Drive.
Okay, so EC2 hard disk will be allocated in a bucket.
No.
No.
That is, see, EC2 storage. It is that is treated as a kind of volume. For that, you have another storage, that is EBS.
Okay. Okay.
So
Yes.
EBS that will be directly accessed from the virtual machine. It is EBS is just like a hard drive.
Okay, I get it. So
This
Amazon
S3 is like a separated your Google Drive. Suppose if you want to upload your data, how you are uploading the data to the Google Drive?
I'm not familiar with the backend very well. So
Which one?
for Google Drive, sir.
No, how you are storing the data in Google Drive?
From front end, sir, we just upload a file and
Yeah. That is one storage. That is a storage offered by the Google.
Okay. And S3 is just for a smaller amount of data.
Not for smaller amount of data. You can store any amount of data in S3.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
You can store any amount of data in S3. And this creation of this S3 also already mentioned in the last lecture, right? So I don't know that.
Yes, sir. It's okay.
Just
Sorry. Yes, sir. It's okay. I'll review. Arun, Ata.
yes, please mute
Yes, sir. I'll review S3, sir. So I just got a little confused, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, this is the process you can see here. Right after logging to this AWS, you will see in the management console, you will see S3. So that is coming under storage.
Okay, so it's like this one in GCP. It's like what's it called? I don't remember. So it's not like the ones you use for functionality, right?
No, it is
It's
only the
just for
storage
storage.
area. S3 is only the storage area.
Okay.
It is a storage area. You can see here S3.
Okay.
And here bucket in the sense it is one folder.
For the front end user.
No, see, yes, you can create any number of bucket. Now let's say that you have a lot of data you want to store, and that data may be of maybe PDF file, a Word document, whatever it may be. So in that case, you can create number of bucket. So one bucket, you can name it as a PDF files, and another bucket, which you can name it as a doc files, and so on.
So you can put Dockers on there, and then you can commission VMs to run from these buckets, or commission like a web app to run from the Docker.
Yes,
file.
even you can store this Docker images also. You can save the Docker images.
Okay.
But
Okay.
For Docker and all, they have separate this Docker hub and all, no?
I'm not familiar, so.
Okay.
But thank you.
Okay, in a simple way, this is the storage area where you can store the data.
Okay, sir. Got it.
That is the basic idea.
Got it, sir. Thank
Okay.
you.
Now, with respect to the web, okay. Now we'll come back to. Okay. Now we'll come back to any web application. Okay. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. So that web application has a static content as well as some dynamic content. Now let's say that your web application has some images. You store that images in Amazon S3 bucket. And similarly, this HTML file, CSS, all those files, you can save it in the Amazon S3 bucket, and that itself you can configure. You can what is that? Those images you can directly refer in other web pages by specifying the location. So that also I mentioned in the last lecture, I think. Okay, now let us say that you are creating a web application. It may be a static, which may completely a static web content, or which may be a dynamic content. Okay, now assume that your one page, one web page which you have created, assume that it is HTML itself, and HTML contains a number of images. All right. Now these images, you can store it in a separate S3 bucket, and where you can specify the location. Is it fine?
Sorry, sir, connection dropped a little bit. Can you repeat the last?
Okay, I will take one simple example. Now let's say that you have created one HTML file. Okay, maybe our department, maybe MIT web page you have created, and assume that there are 4 images. Okay, for or any number of image, and each image is for a particular department. So one image of CSE department, and one image of IT department, and one image of some other department, and so on. Okay, now all those images you can store it in a S3 bucket. Okay, and from the HTML file you can give the link to that S3 bucket.
Okay. And then you can
Even
refer.
all this all the static content, you can store it in that Amazon S3 itself.
Okay, so load time is it doesn't take that long then.
Which
Like
one?
then latency is reduced, like you
No,
said
that
earlier.
see Amazon S3 in the sense it is a cloud only, no.
Yes, sir. So you want to ideally put all static content
Yes,
in
static
bucket.
content. Yes,
Okay.
Amazon S3.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay, now you just assume that your entire web application consists of static pages only. That is nothing but all HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and images. Okay, and assume that so this Amazon S3 or maybe you can configure this one as a web server only. Now assume that that is residing in India. So your web application which is residing in India. Is it fine?
Yes, sir. Correct. So
Okay.
we're trying to
Now
host from Indian
you are the
server.
okay. Now you are one of the client or the customer, and you are accessing that web page. So the latency will be less because so that will be hosted in Indian server itself.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now consider a scenario. There is another client from USA, and he is also trying to access the same web page. That web page, same web application, which is located in Indian server. From that US to this India, that latency will be more.
Okay. Yeah. So you're trying to reduce load by distributing it.
Yes. So what you can do is you can distribute those static content across the globe.
Okay. So,
You
but
are caching.
practically, in India, the servers, like for S3, will be cheaper to commission than like US, right?
I didn't get your question.
So, commissioning an S3 in India would be cheaper than commissioning an S3, like using an S3 in like US, right?
No, you just consider a scenario that
Okay.
initially a business is started in a small scale and your web server is residing in India only because you initially the customers are from India only.
Okay. Okay. Got
But
it.
over a period of time, when the company is having the customers across the globe,
Then we
right?
have the option to do that.
Then what you can do is you can use what is called as a content delivery network, right? Where you can distribute the content across the globe.
Okay, so as you're trying to grow and expand your web
Yes.
application, then
So
you can
in
start
that
using.
case, that US client will access the web page from their edge location itself.
Okay, sir. Understood. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so initially what happens? Initially the web pages will be in Indian server itself. First time when one client make a request, all right? So he will receive that web page from Indian server itself, and at the same time that will be cached in the edge server of USA. And when other client are trying to access the same static content, instead of rendering that static content from an Indian server, it will be rendered from the US edge location itself.
So just one last question, sir. The client using the service from US, right?
Yes.
Is Are they going to be accessing the edge nearest to them, or
Yes. Nearest to them. Yes.
Okay. Not the one with most load overall, right?
No, nearest one.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, this is what which is shown here. You have one origin server where exactly your web application is located, and you have a different edge location, and that static content will be delivered through that edge location itself. See, for the first time, what happens is the edge location will not be having any static content. So initially edge location will not be having any static content. First it will be delivered through the original server itself, and that content will be content is cached in the edge location. Now when other client trying to access the same static content, since it is already there in the edge location, and it will be served through that edge location itself. In case if that is not there in the edge location, then definitely that will be rendered through the original server. Is it fine?
Yes, sir. Correct.
Okay. Now these are all the different edge server or the edge location in United States, Europe, Asia. You can see that the different countries, they have that number of edge location. Right. In India also you can see that Chennai and Mumbai. Okay, so now what is the advantage of this maybe having this content delivery network or that service offered by Amazon, that is CloudFront, right? Maybe which is simple to configure. Maybe I'll just show one simple demo how to use this CloudFront. And you can delivery of content using, you can configure it as it is for this both HTTP and HTTPS. And similarly, you have the access policy through private content features. Okay, in the sense maybe you can configure that overall can access that your web application. Now let's say that you don't want maybe the clients from Afghan. You don't want client from Afghan to access your web pages. That you can configure. And the streaming is also possible.
So you can block by IP address location.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay, now how do you create a distribution? Okay, so here this is the step-by-step process. Yes, place the original version of the objects in Amazon S3 bucket.
Sir, I'm not able to hear the slides, sir. I'm not able to see the slides, sir.
Is it visible?
No, sir.
Sir, it is visible.
Is it visible now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so now this is the process. Okay, one is maybe initially you place all the static content in Amazon S3 bucket. It is just like one folder in a cloud. You place all the S3 bucket, place all the static content. It may be image, whatever it may be, HTML file. You place it in that S3 bucket. Okay, then you just go to this Amazon Amazon console, and there is a provision for creating the distribution. Yes. So now this is a procedure, how exactly that the content is delivered. Yes. When a client requests a page using that domain name, CloudFront identifies the best edge location to serve our content. If an edge location doesn't have a copy of the file, then CloudFront identifies the original server from URL and copies the content to the edge location. Amazon CloudFront uses the expiration period on files. Even as I said, right, the static content will be stored in cached in the edge location. Right. For that, you can also specify the expiry date. Right. Whether it should expire in 24 hours or what, or it will be the static content will be there for how many days. That you can specify. Okay, now this is the step-by-step procedure. All right. So you just first log into Amazon Cloud. and that Amazon CloudFront, which is coming under the category of storage and content delivery. All right, you just select storage and then select the CloudFront. Okay, then there is an option there. All right, so there is an option for create a distribution. Create distribution. That means you want to distribute the content across the globe. You want to distribute the content. Okay, you just click on create distribution. Okay, then there once again you have the option, right? Whether it is a web distribution or a streaming, all right? So that you can select. Now assume that now you want to distribute the web content. You select web. Okay, then these are all some of the configuration. So these are all some of the configuration. Okay, I'll just try to explain few configuration. First one is with respect to the original domain name. What is that original domain name? It is so original domain name is it is the exact initial location in which the content exists. Initial content, where exactly it is located. Assume that initial all static contents are located in S3 bucket. Then you just specify the that location of that S3 bucket. So that is the original domain name. Okay. Then similarly, some other configurations, maybe whether it is HTTP, HTTPS, and maybe other configuration is yes, expiry time, right? Expiry time, so that you can specify. All right. So whenever the content is cached through the edge location, all right. So whether that content will be there for how many hours? That content should be there for how many hours? All right. So if you specify it is there for maybe 24 hours. All right. After 24 hours, if a other client is trying to access the same static content, okay, in that case, what happens? That content will be delivered from the main web server, and once again, that new updated content will be stored in the edge location. Updated content will be delivered, stored in the edge location. Okay, then last part, what you can see is the distribution settings. All right, distribution setting, where you can specify where exactly you want to distribute the content. Okay, so there are different options. Maybe whether you want to distribute the content across the globe. All right. So when you want to distribute across the globe, maybe the price will be also more. And assume that you have only the client from the USA. Okay, US or Australia. Then there is a provision, right? Maybe you can distribute the content only through the edge locations of US and Australia. So that you can specify. Okay, so that is the basic idea of this CloudFront. Any doubt with respect to the CloudFront, or can anyone summarize in one sentence what exactly that why CloudFront is used?
So one doubt I have is
Yes.
that so whenever the if we have a caching expiration time like of
Yes.
24 hours,
Yes.
and let's say we have an image from Indian server to US server, and
Yes.
once the user queried and the edge gets this storage, like edge caches it. So next
Yes.
time someone uses it, he'll get the same image. But what if the image was modified on the Indian server by someone else? So
Okay.
will this be updated?
That is what that expiry date you have to specify.
Okay, so it's
And
to do with the
and there are some other configuration also, maybe some kind of what is that push or pull based, like if any contents are changed in the main web server itself, that can be updated to your edge location also.
okay, thank you.
Okay, next we will move on to another cloud provider. So that is Microsoft Azure. So we will look at some of the services offered by Microsoft Azure. Yes, so Azure is a cloud computing platform which was launched by Microsoft in 2010. So Azure provides a developer with the development platform to create, test, manage, and deploy new web-based applications, or to improve the existing application with the cloud-based capabilities. Azure also makes provision for users to utilize virtual machines of both Windows and Linux based operating systems. So that means, so Azure provides both a PaaS as well as a IA service. So initially they are providing only the PaaS service where we can develop. They are providing the platform where in which you can develop the application. Now this Azure also provides that IaaS service. In the sense they are also offering the compute service. Yeah, Microsoft Azure is okay. This slide I have taken from one of the video lecture. So Microsoft Azure is 5 times cheaper than AWS when using a Microsoft product. Okay, they say that that Azure is 5 times cheaper than AWS when using Microsoft product. What might be the reason?
So because they're trying to get into the cloud space, and any product under Microsoft itself, it's easier for them to like they don't have to buy a license for it.
Yes, yes. For example, now let's say that you want to create a virtual machine with the Windows operating system in Amazon, right? So there you have to pay for more for this licensing. But now this is, that virtual machine is offered by the Microsoft. Okay, the licensing cost will be less. Okay, they also have the provision saving through the existing Microsoft licenses. Saving through existing Microsoft license. So that this is something like this. Now let's say that you have the maybe laptop which are already you are already having the Windows license. If you are already having the Windows license, then maybe if you want to use maybe Microsoft, you want to create a Microsoft virtual machine where you want to install Windows operating system itself. If you are already having that license on your desktop machine, right? Maybe the cost will be less. Yes, more than 95% of the Fortune 500 companies use Microsoft Azure. So this Microsoft Azure also, they have a lot of services. So today we'll look at a few of the services, not in detail. We just get an idea of what are the services offered by Microsoft Azure. So before that, let us go through the architecture of this Microsoft Azure. All right. So there are mainly 3 components. All right. So you can see here, one is maybe with respect to maybe front end component. All right. So where in which how you can access the Azure services, and the second component is Azure Resource Manager, and the third component is nothing but all the services, all the services. First component, what you can see is that Azure Portal, Azure PowerShell, Azure CLI, command line interface, REST client. So through which you can access this Microsoft cloud resources. All right. So how do you access this? Through the Azure Resource Manager. Through the Azure Resource Manager. So this Azure Resource Manager will act as a middleware. Acts as a middleware. So that resource manager will actually decide, right, to access the various services to the user, right? How exactly it will offer or provide access these services to the user through the through this authentication, right? So they have whoever the user can access these resources and so on. Okay, now let us look at these one by one. Okay, well, let us start with the first component set. All right. As I mentioned, maybe this complete that architecture can be divided into front end, middleware, and services. So front end is nothing but how you can access these Microsoft cloud resources. You can access through the front end. So what are the different front end? Yes, these are all the different front end. Right. So one is Azure Portal, and Azure PowerShell, and Azure CLI, and REST client. The first one is a Azure portal, right? Similar to what you have seen in Amazon, right? So you have a web portal through which you can access these. You can access Azure services. How exactly it looks like, which is shown here, right? So which is a web-based interface through which you can access all the services offered by the Microsoft Azure. Similarly, they also provide a command line interface also. Through the command line interface also, you can access the Azure services. All right. So two command line services are, one is Azure PowerShell and the second one is Amazon command line interface. So through the command you can access the this cloud services. So one is Amazon PowerShell and another is a command line interface. So some example, right? How you can access the cloud resources through the command line interface. They provide some set of commands, like some examples are something like this. EAZ login. So that is used to log into the Azure account. Okay. Then similarly, if you want to create a group, how you can create a group? EAZ group. So similarly, if you want to list all the groups, where you can use EAZ group list and so on. Through the command line, you can access the service. And another is the REST client. So now let's say that through programmatically you want to access the cloud resources through programmatically. That means you can write an application, and this Azure provides expose some of the APIs, and you can use those APIs to access those resources automatically. Now let's say that automatically you want to create a virtual machine through the program, so that can be done using this REST client. You can write a program. In the program itself, you can maybe now let's say that you want to create a 10 virtual machine. You programmatically you can create a 10 virtual machine, or you want to create a storage. Yes, through the program you can create those services.
So could you do that in PowerShell and CLI as well? Like make a shell script, PowerShell script to commission multiple resources?
This I'm not very sure, but these three, that is the PowerShell and Azure CL, that you have to check whether you will be able to access. Actually, this PowerShell and Amazon CLI internally make use of these APIs which are exposed by the Azure. So behind the scene, they're actually using that APIs of exposed by the Azure itself.
Okay. Got it.
Anyhow, see this REST client, in the sense you are writing an application, right? So that application maybe you can write using shell as well as CLI, I think.
No, yeah, CLI and
Yeah.
PowerShell will just be you pass the commands,
Yes.
and like you said, they're built upon these APIs. But there's probably a way, I think, to automate running VMs like on a weekly basis or something.
Yeah, that's what. If you want to create maybe huge number of virtual machines and all, maybe instead of this command line, it is a time-consuming process. Then you can go for this.
Oh, REST is easier. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Okay, then next one is Azure Resource Manager, right? So in the diagram, what you have seen is that yes, so that is a middleware which actually provide access to all the services which are offered by Azure. Yes, Azure Resource Manager plays a key deploying and managing the Azure resources. It helps us in organize our resources in one group. This group is called resource group. It helps us to deploy, manage, and monitor all the resources for our solutions as a group, rather than handling these resources individually. All right. So which provide a facility in which maybe you can group a number of resources into the different group. So now let's say that maybe you are developing creating one application to a particular client or a company. Now assume that for that maybe you have created from maybe 5 virtual machines and two storage service and so on. That is for company 1. Okay, assume that for company 1 you have created 5 virtual machines and 3 storage service. And similarly, you might create another 5 virtual machine and another 3 storage service for company 2. Like, so now how do you distinguish between those two? So in that case, it is better to create two separate group. So one group for company A and another group for company B. In that case, maybe now let us say that you want to see all the resources which you have created for company A, that you can directly get by specifying the resource group. Okay,
So
this
it's like,
example.
sorry, sir. It's like projects in GCP. Like you have project 1, project 2, and
The idea is almost the same thing.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Now here the example which shows the same thing. Okay, you have created one resource group. Now let's say that you are hosting one web application in one virtual machine. Okay, so now web application you can web application and assume that that is hosted in one virtual machine and which is making use of one database service. So that entire thing you can group it as a one resource group for one company. And similarly, maybe some other company, you can create another group. So dealing with these resources, when you have the huge number of resources, when you create huge number of resources in the sense, it may be a virtual machine, which may be a storage or anything. And the what is that? The differentiating the resources which you have created for each company, which is easy when you have the when you create a separate group. Is it clear?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, now let us see what are the services offered, right? So, it's like Amazon, they also offer the number of services. So that is categorized under a different domain. So one is a computer, networking, file storage, database, AI and machine learning, identity management domain, and so on. Under each domain, there are various services. Okay, we look at maybe one service from each group. Okay, first one from the compute domain. First one from the compute domain. So under compute domain, various services offered are virtual machine, function app service, and the Kubernetes service. Okay, so these are all the main service which is coming under compute. Okay, first one is the virtual machine. I don't think it is once again need to be explained, which we already studied in Amazon Amazon, right? So that is Amazon EC2, how to create a virtual machine, right? Next one is about the function app. Okay, now what exactly that function app? To get an idea of function app, is Azure function is a solution for easily running small piece of code or function in the cloud. You can write just the code you need for the problem at hand without worrying about whole application or infrastructure to run it. So now let's say that maybe you want to perform a small computation, which is a part of maybe one big web application, right? So in that case, you can go for this function app. So that function app is responsible for performing uh, only small task, only small task of maybe big computation. Maybe simple example, maybe I can give something like this. Okay, now let's say that maybe you are uploading maybe new images on web application. Okay, maybe Facebook or any social networking site. Okay, that example is something like this. Now you want to crop the image, right? So that cropping that image, maybe you can treat it as a separate function, right? And that logic which you can write it in the function app, right? So now the function app, the input for that function app is maybe image which will be providing, and that function app is responsible for cropping or any changes which you want to do it for that image. Alright, then after cropping, there is the resulting image will be used by some other application. So that is nothing but this is the function app. So that function app is responsible for performing a small application, a small task of the entire maybe big task. And app service. So this app service, app service is it is a combination of this both the PaaS as well as IaaS. In the sense, maybe you want to develop an application, right, which may be for a mobile service, mobile application or web-based application, where you can use a app service. And last one is with respect to the Kubernetes service. Okay, so Azure also provides Kubernetes services. It is something like this. Now let's say that you are developing an application, right? It is not a monolithic applications, not a monolithic application. So monolithic in the sense, that complete application will be residing in one single virtual machine. You don't want that. Instead of that, maybe you want to divide that entire application into smaller piece of application, which are called as a microservices, microservices, and each services will interact with each other to form a single application. Correct? So that means you have a number of microservices, and to manage these microservices. Now let's say that you have created one web application, one application which consists of maybe thousands of microservices. It is a difficult when you have this number of thousands of microservices. It is a difficult to manage. It is difficult to manage. So in that case, you need what is called as a container. You need what is called as a container. So where Kubernetes is a container management tool. Kubernetes is a container management tool. Initially, so this was Kubernetes was provided by it was started by the Google. Now it is open. It is open source. The simple example is something like this. Now let's say that maybe you have created maybe one application which consists of thousands of microservices. Assume that one service is automatically crashed. Then this container management tool is responsible for automatically create a new service. Automatically create a new service. So that is a responsibility of the container management service. Similarly, even scaling also. Now let's say that maybe you have created a web application. You have created a web application as a microservice architecture, where you have one front end and maybe some back end services. Okay, uh, and maybe when the load is more, you want to create more number of so those microservices. You want to increase the number of services. So that will be taken care by the Kubernetes.
Sorry, sir. If suppose we wanted to host an image classifier for inference on any disease diagnosis.
Okay.
Not like I would want to go for a VM, but from what you explained about containers and Kubernetes, like it sounds a way better approach, right? But could it handle that?
Which one?
Like an image classification model, let's say this model is really heavy and it needs 4 NVIDIA T4 GPUs or something like 64 GB VRAM. Like, could you break that down into different containers and host to distributed parallelization?
See, when it requires a high computer, then maybe you can directly use this entire virtual machine itself or entire server.
Okay, so
See, the idea is something like this. Maybe 20 years back, okay, maybe your entire web application, okay, entire web application was running in a single server. Entire web application was running in a single server. Then maybe after 10 years, all right, you are dividing that web server into number of you are dividing that physical machine into a number of virtual machine 1 and machine 2 and so on. So that means you are hosting web application in a virtual machine. You are hosting the web application in a virtual machine. Now once again, you have within a virtual machine itself, right? That entire application component you can divide it into number of microservice, and each microservice can run in a container. You are having number of container. The container is nothing but the Docker container which we normally refer, right?
yes, sir. I couldn't find like a formal definition of a Docker container. That's why I got confused. If you could just explain a container.
See, Docker container is something like this. Now let's say that I have developed one web application. One application I have developed. Okay, and to develop that application, I need that supporting tools and all. It may be maybe some I know. Let's say that I have used some web server of some particular version or some jar file, whatever it may be, and using that I have developed one web application. So now which is working fine. That web application is working fine. Now assume that I am the developer and I am developing the application, and assume that you are the tester. Okay, you want to test this application. Now what happens is that when I give that application to you, all right, so that application may not run in your machine because you might use a different configuration. All right, so now this container, what it does is along with the your program, other supporting packages, library, everything will be packaged as one container, and you are running that entire container itself.
Okay, so you don't have to keep reinstalling libraries on
No,
every.
no. So that
Okay.
container you can directly run. Now you
But
don't have any headache of maybe whether you have to search for that library, this library, and so on.
okay,
Everything required for running that application will be packaged into a single container.
but then so like the container is just like an image with like how does it have any RAM, VRAM, or
Container will not be having any RAM or VRAM.
so where is it running then, the web app?
Container you have to run either it in the virtual machine or in the normal server itself.
And this Kubernetes service runs containers.
Kubernetes is a container orchestration tool.
It organizes
Yes.
and manages containers. Okay.
Yes. It
Okay,
is
so
something like this. Now let's say that your application, you have an application, correct, and you have used a microservice architecture, and you have maybe hundreds of microservices. Assume that you have hundreds of microservices, okay, and assume that hundreds of microservices spread across maybe 10 servers. Assume that you have 10 servers. You have 10 servers, and your entire application consists of maybe hundreds of microservices which are spread across these 10 servers. Now, how you are going to manage these microservices? To manage these microservices, you need what is called as a container orchestration
And in
or
this
container
case,
management.
and in this case, those 10 servers are hosted VMs.
Yeah, either it can host VM or you can what is that? It can run directly on the server itself.
Okay, okay. Okay, okay. There's multiple. Okay, okay. So, yeah, got it. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, now we'll see one example how to create a VM on Azure, and any of the process is the same. Here, the main objective is to just to illustrate that how you can create a resource group. Okay, so initially you start with the resource group. Okay, so here I'm using the web portal, right? Through the web portal, how you are going to create a virtual machine. Alright, so the process is the same. Maybe initially you can create a resource group. You can see that option, right? So there is option for creating the resource group. You can select the resource group. Then you will find a button called as add. Add means you want to create a resource group. Alright? Yes. So this will create one resource group. So the first step, what you are doing is that you are creating one resource group. Okay, okay. Then second step is what I'm doing is I'm creating the new virtual machine. Now the procedure is same for creating the virtual machine. Here one extra step what you can see is that is for creating the virtual machine also you want to create a new virtual machine, and here where you can specify that yes, this virtual machine is coming under which group. You can explicitly specify in the drop down menu. You can select that this virtual machine I want to create. It should coming under group X or group Y and so on. So that means the number of virtual machine you can create under a different group. So that is only to manage the resources. That is only to manage the resource. Okay, then after creating the virtual machine, the procedure is same, right? There are different steps, right? You have to select the OS image and you have to select how many cores, RAM in terms of the different template. The procedure is same. After creating the virtual machine, you can use any yes, a PuTTY or maybe a remote RDP of Windows to access this virtual machine. Okay, so that is about compute service. Okay, so what are the compute services? Yes, virtual machine, function app service, and Kubernetes service. Next, we'll see under networking. Okay, under networking, you have different services. That is virtual network, load balancer, application gateway, DNS zones, and CDN. Okay, so virtual network in the sense, suppose if you want to within Azure, you want to create your own virtual network. That virtual network can be created using this virtual network service. Next is about the load balancer. So load balancer, as the name indicates, now let's say that you have suppose you have created maybe if you are following MUC architecture, model view controller, right? Model view controllers. Maybe in that case, initially the request will go through this load balancer, and behind that you will be having the number of application server or a front end, and the request will be forwarded using the round robin fashion. It will be forwarded to the round robin fashion.
So you would like the load balancer would put more weightage towards the model and like
No,
it will decide
it
which
is something like this. Now let's say that you have only you have only one your web application will reside in only one virtual machine. You have created one virtual machine, and where the web application is running. Okay.
in
Now
MVC
yes, VM.
design.
Now
Okay.
as the load increases, what is one option is that you can scale. What is scale? Scaling in the sense you can create another virtual machine. So on, you can create number of virtual machine. Now let us that initially it started with one virtual machine, and as the load increases, it will create a number of virtual machines. And each virtual machine is running that web application. Now, whenever a client make a request, how it will be forwarded to the that virtual machine? So initially it will hit the load balancer. Initially it will hit the load balancer, and the load balancer will connect to all the web server. So when first client make a request, it will go to the load balancer and it will hit the first web server. Then second request, it will go to the load balancer and the request will forward to the second web server, and so on. It will go in a round robin fashion.
Sorry, sir. Do you mean like view will be in one VM, controller in one VM, and model in one VM, or this is like the whole project will be just copied across VMs, and like you said, like the load
Yes.
balancer decides
Yes.
by clients
Yes,
interaction.
entire application will be in the multiple virtual machine.
Okay, understood. Thank you, sir.
It is something like this. Initially you have load balancer and one backend application. Assume that load balancer and one web server. Web server is running in one virtual machine. Okay. Now, see, when you have only one virtual machine, the load balancer will forward the request to that virtual machine itself. Now consider a scenario whenever there is a more load, there is an option where you can increase the number of virtual machine. In a sense, you increase the number of servers.
Yeah.
Okay. Now in this case, what happens? Now let's say that you are increasing the server from the 1 to 2, or you are increasing the number from 1 to 5. So now you have 5 servers and one load balancer, front end load balancer. The front-end load balancer is responsible for forwarding the request in a round-robin fashion.
Okay, sir. So one weird sort of question. If suppose we want to, from the developer side, do an update to this application right now, like you've described it. So how would we handle like updating on 10 VMs? Like one version will be, if we do it one by one, it'll be like one is more updated than the other ones, right? Or we'll have to shut down the entire servers to do it.
No, it is done automatically. That is what scaling, horizontal scaling and vertical scaling. Automatically, you can scale the virtual machine.
So, so an updated image through horizontal and vertical scaling is how you
see
like,
this entire image itself. You can replicate
in real time.
Yes.
Okay. But what if someone pushed an update like right now, and the users are still using the web app?
See that example which I have taken, your entire application is running in one virtual machine. But in reality, it is not like that. Web application normally follows this MVC architecture, right? So model, view, controller, where you have one front end service and number of what is that? Um, application servers, and behind that you have the database servers, like that.
Yes, sir.
So your entire application is not running in one virtual machine. Normally, it follows that MVC architecture.
Okay, got it, sir. Sir, thank you. Because I understand better through VMs because I've used it. So that's why I was just thinking from VM point of view. But I'll look into this.
Yeah. Anyhow, some of the concept will clear maybe in the virtualization chapter, which I'll be covering after this. there you will get an idea from what do you mean by scaling and what is horizontal scaling, vertical scaling, then what is virtual machine migration, live migration, non-live migration. So there are various concepts coming under virtualization. There I hope some of the concept gets cleared.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay, then after this load balancer, next is a application gateway. Okay, this application gateway is also almost similar to this load balancer only. The only difference is that based on the particular request, it will forward it to the particular server. Based on the request, it will forward it to the particular server. It is something like this. Now let's say that we have this maybe MIT. We have one web application, and assume that your MIT web application is running in a number of servers. Okay, so that means there is a dedicated server for maybe CS department, dedicated server for IT department, mechanical department, and so on. Okay, and assume that the URL will be something like this: www.mit.com/IT. Then what happens? The request will be forwarded to the backend server for this IT or ICT. If the request is something like www.mit.com/mechanical, then the request will be forwarded to the backend server of mechanical, and so on. Or maybe with respect to the Google, I can say that when you say that Google / maybe Gmail, it will be forwarded to the separate set of servers. And if the request is something like something others, it will be forwarded to the other some other servers, and so on. See, Google at the backend, they are having number of servers. Based on the request, it will be forwarded to the forwarded to the one of the backend server. Is it clear?
Yes.
What is the difference, load balancer and application gateway?
Yes, sir. So based on the applications, application gateway will choose, and
Yes.
the load balancer is based on the amount of traffic from the client.
Yes.
Okay.
The application gateway is something like this. Now let's say that maybe some student is having some query and he is making a call to maybe our MIT main office. All right. So based on whether he is belonging to IT or ICT or mechanical, the call will be forwarded to the one of the department. So that is something like application gateway. Okay. Next is with respect to this DNS. Okay, so the DNS zone is a data source that contains DNS records for a domain name. Right. So here this this is responsible for this mapping of your domain name to the IP address. See, whenever you create a web application, you want to get you want to get that domain name, right? You have to get the domain name, and it has to be mapped to the IP address. Normally, how it is done is maybe you go to GoDaddy and they will provide the domain name, and that will be mapped to the your IP address. All right. So now, within Azure itself, that your domain name to mapping of this IP address will be done in the that service is offered by Microsoft Azure itself. And the last one is about CDN. That is a content delivery network. So what is its equivalent name in Amazon?
So content delivery system.
Yeah, CloudFront, right? So CloudFront. Next is about this services, storage services. Okay, storage services, blob service, file storage, table, queue, data lake storage, and yeah, data box and so on. Yeah, first one is about this blob storage. Yes, Azure Blob Storage is a service for storing large amount of unstructured object data such as a text, binary data, and so on. So this is, maybe I can say that it is almost similar to your uh, uh, S3 bucket. All right, you can, maybe I will give the demonstration for this blob also. Next is about file storage. So now what is it? It's file storage. So file storage is, it is just like a shared storage. If you have this multiple virtual machines, that can have this shared file storage. Multiple machine can have this shared storage. Maybe from one machine you can share the data, and that can be accessed by other virtual machines. Then tables. Okay, so now what exactly that table is? Azure table stores large amount of structured data. This is a NoSQL data NoSQL data store, which is a column oriented data store. So only the difference is that here uh, the table which are created need not have adhere to the fixed number of columns. Right, some data may be having few columns and some data may be having more number of columns and so on. So which is a NoSQL database. Okay, next is the queuing service. Next is the queuing service. Okay, now what is the queuing service? One example, I'll tell the same thing. Now let's say that many users are maybe uploading the images, okay, on a social networking site. Now is consider a scenario that each image has to be processed. Each image has to be processed. Then it will be uploaded to actual web page. And assume that there are maybe 5 servers are dedicated for that. 5 servers are dedicated to that. Okay, then queuing service, what it does is that that images will be first queued into that queuing service, and that backend server will pick each image and perform the appropriate processing. Then it will be uploaded to the web page and so on. As the name indicates that it will provide the queuing service.
So is this like buckets from AWS?
No, it is not bucket. It is a queue, like the data structure, the queue what we have studied, right?
Yeah. Okay. Okay. This is not okay. Okay. This is.
It is a simple
how
queuing.
you handle it.
It is a queue, and from the queue, the objects, whatever the object may be, images or whatever it may be, that will be picked.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, then data lake storage, that is for processing maybe huge amount of data. Last one is with respect to the data box. So the data box is the data box concept is something like this. Now let's say that you are already having maybe huge petabytes of data. All right. So in that case, immediately uploading that data, when you have huge amount of data, maybe which consumes which may takes maybe 1 week for upload this entire that entire data into the cloud. So in that case, they have a concept called as that data box, correct? So it is something like this. Maybe you are transferring that entire data into their maybe that data store or something like that. Instead of uploading this data to the through the internet, right? Through the internet, when you have this huge amount of data, which may take one week of time also. Okay, instead of that, you are using what is the concept, what is called as a data box. Okay, just I'll quickly show that how exactly that you are using this blob storage. Right? The once again the concept is the same. You start with you just log in, then you create a storage account. So first you need to create a storage account. The interface is similar to your Amazon. Okay, then after creating a storage account, you will be having option. You can see here, right? One is the blob storage, file, table, queue, and so on. Then you click on this blob storage. Yes, under that blob storage, where you have, yes, you can create what is called as you create a container. Now the container is just like a maybe you can consider this as one folder. You are creating one container. Okay. Yes. After that, yes, in that container you can upload the file. In that container you can upload any number of files. Yes, use upload. There is a button called as upload where in which you can upload the file. URL can be used to access the image from other website. Now, once you have this, what is called as a blob, that's now let's say that you have 10 images. Okay, you have 10 images and you have uploaded that in the blob, and each images will be having the unique URL. Each will be having unique URL, and through that URL you can access that images. Through that unique URL you can access that image, or you can also you can create any web page. From that web page you can give the link to this image. That means you can make that images to be loaded in the web page. Okay, then similarly you can give the access permission also. If you make it public, maybe it can be accessed by everyone, or if you want to make it private, you can also make it private. Similarly, you have maybe other services like database service. So that is SQL database, and identity service. Okay, so that is identity service for managing the users, right? So user management, who are all the users can access, what are the permission and creation of the group, and who are all the user can access, which are all the services that is managed by the services called as a identity. Similarly, you have management services. Under management services, you have log analytics, cost management billing, automation account metrics, and so on. So log analytic, as the name indicates, maybe when application is running, you can log the data to check whether to check the performance of the application running in any virtual machine, and so on. And similarly, metrics. Okay, so metrics, maybe you can view the performance in terms of the different GUI. For that you can use metrics. And similarly other services like cost management, billing, and automation service, which are coming under management. Yeah, these are all the few services which are offered by the Amazon. Anyhow, you cannot you cannot perfect with all the services. At least be familiar with the few services. So this Microsoft also offers a free account. Maybe you can log in and you can access some of the services offered by this Amazon.
Excuse me, sir. Can you upload the slide deck? I would like to go through again the concepts.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Any doubt?
No, sir.
Yeah. If no doubt, thank you all.
Thank you, sir.